Joe and Frank are in Bermuda today, staying with one of Dad's friends named Montague. Montague has a hot daughter named Alicia, who's into Joe because of course she's into Joe. It's basically against Hardy Boys rules for there to be a hot girl who's not into Joe. This is probably why we don't get many books about the boys in high school. Joe has to fight off screaming women on the way to every class.
Argo Font Book Review, Argo Font Book Review.
The Hardys are doing surveillance of a criminal named Kruger. He's been smuggling credit cards as part of an operation that buys things at half price, then sells them at full price. In other words, they're resellers, the people who ruin every yard sale ever. Ugh. Kruger's goons see the Hardys taking pictures. When the Hardys drive away, the goons smash their car off a bridge into the ocean. Frank and Joe have problems escaping from the underwater car because of the window, and I'm sorry to say it took me a while to figure out what was going on, because in the 1980s, car windows had handles. I guess car manufacturers got rid of them because they're not useful in death-defying situations. The Hardys go to get motorbikes, but the man at the store says their cards are over the limit. They're immediately arrested for credit card fraud, and they're just as immediately released because the chief of police knows their dad. Of course he does. The chief of police in Bermuda knows all the private eyes in New Jersey. Frank and Joe find a credit card for Montague by their ruined car. They start to worry that Montague is the culprit, and they suspect him for the next 60 pages or so, even though it's obvious the culprits planted the card as fake evidence. I mean, the Hardys were just arrested earlier in this chapter because the culprits used credit cards with their names on them. But logical explanations aren't as dramatic as paranoia and suspicion, so we're gonna keep our eyes on you, Montague. Alicia gets a strange call from Martin Powers. The Hardys go to Martin's address, which is a houseboat. They break in and start exploring, but it's a trap! A bomb goes off, the boat explodes, and the Hardys are framed for the crime. But since the chief of police likes them, they get let off immediately. Wow. Too bad Chief Colleague isn't as friendly with the Hardys. The Hardys go back to Kruger's just in time to see people on a boat making a delivery. Joe swims to the boat and explores. He finds a bunch of evidence, including checkbooks and credit cards. Joe grabs an important-looking computer disk and shoves it in his swim trunks. Ow! Ow! Remember, computer disks back then were giant! Double ow! Kruger's goons show up and fight Joe. They tie him up, make puns about random animals, and then they throw him overboard with an anchor tied around his waist. Fortunately, Frank is there with scuba gear, so he cuts Joe free, and they escape in their car. The culprits try to give chase, but Joe hides in the trunk and he throws the scuba gear at their windshield. It was a cool scene. Montague allays all the concerns that he's guilty, and he helps the Hardys decode the disc. It's called the Numbers File, and it has a bunch of bank information. Everybody's surprised at these sophisticated new cyber criminals. They steal things through computers. Whoa, this book is so high tech. The culprits lure the Hardys out of the house by cutting the phone line. We get the cover scene where they're riding their bikes being chased by the culprits. There's no guns though. The culprits just straight up hit Frank with their car. Joe stops to save Frank and they're both captured. They're taken to the boat and thrown in the bilge. The culprits also kidnap Alicia. Alicia has good news. The culprits are so incompetent, they didn't notice she has a gun. Also, bad news. Alicia is so incompetent, she was kidnapped even though she had a gun the whole time, and the kidnappers didn't. Joe and Alicia break the lock on the door, and they want to escape immediately, but Frank brings the story to a grinding halt, so he can give everybody a geometry lesson. Nerd! He explains how triangulation works and how we can extrapolate their destination as the intersection of two lines. So he breaks into the captain's room and sets the autopilot off course in order to do this. You might be wondering why Frank goes through all this trouble if he has access to the captain's room, because surely there's something in the captain's room which indicates their destination. But no, Frank doesn't search the captain's room at all. He sticks with the triangulation plan. I guess he thinks he'd look stupid if he changed plans halfway through. The culprits notice that Frank messed with autopilot, so they tie up our heroes. Frank and Joe easily untie the knots and set a trap, which lets them get a jump on the culprits. A big fight ensues, and Alicia saves Joe's life with her gun that should have been used 2 chapters ago. Our heroes call the police, and the culprits are arrested. The end. Wait, we've still got another 40 pages? How do we fill that up? Okay, got it. All the culprits are arrested, besides Kruger and his main partner. They escaped onto a cruise ship. Arresting them outright would be too easy, so the Hardys have to break into the cruise ship, fight the partner, fake his death so Kruger doesn't get suspicious, then arrest Kruger when the ship lands in New York. It was exciting, but I still don't understand why they couldn't arrest the culprits right away. Maybe Joe was just making an excuse so he could be on a cruise with Alicia. They share connecting rooms, and I'm sure things would have been romantic if Frank and Alicia's dad weren't there too. The end. Post-book follow-up. I enjoyed this book, but it doesn't feel like it was designed for the Casefiles series. This feels more like an original Hardy Boys book. You know, the ones that everyone makes fun of because Frank and Joe are squeaky clean Boy Scouts. I especially got that feeling with the exploding houseboat scene because before they go in, they have a debate over whether or not it's okay to trespass in a culprit's house. And the question comes up again when Joe searches the culprit's boat. That's out of place for the series where the Hardy Boys are gritty action spies who shoot first and ask questions later. The plot was simplistic. Most of these books have multiple suspects and plot twists, but not this one. We're told who the culprit is on page 2, and he's the main culprit the entire time. Sure, there was a fake out with Montague for a while, but that didn't fool me. If you ignore that, the story is very straightforward, and it wraps things up neatly. It's not bad, but again, it feels more like 1920s Hardy Boys than 1980s Hardy Boys. The dialogue is also simplistic. The Hardys don't talk like older teenagers, they talk like 4th graders. In addition to a joke about pajamas, we get jokes like this. Are you okay? Yeah, but they ripped my favorite shirt. Well, now it can be your favorite short-sleeved shirt. Ha 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 ha! It's like they're stealing jokes from the Boxcar Children series. I'm not saying this book is bad, it just doesn't fit in with a series that tries its hardest to be R-rated. Either the author missed the target audience's age by about 5 years, or the book was originally done for another series and retrofitted to match this one. If I was the editor, I probably would have kept the story, but changed the dialogue to something more in line with the rest of the series. I give Hardy Boys Casefiles number 17, The Numbers File, a 6 out of 10.